the question I asked one guy, because he was talking about how much he works, and he was working filling shifts for people, right? Because they would call in sick, they wouldn't show up, like all of that. And I'm like, why are you working so hard for people that will never even show up to your funeral? Right? Like, there's only going to be two people that are going to remember, all the hours you worked, and it's going to be you and your family. Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, owner of multiple locations for almost 20 years, and we now help restaurant owners increase their sales, their profits, and have more freedom with their time. And we actually have Donnie here, who has an amazing story of basically going from a place of negative 110 in profitability to a 40,000 profit in a matter of months, and the outcome of that also being the mental health that comes along with that. So he's got quite a story to tell. So you guys are in for a treat today. So let's talk about this for a second. Let's dive in, because most people are aware of my journey and how I started when I was young and got into a really rough place, and obviously had some struggles and the mental health challenges. I mean, let's be honest, people don't really talk about that much at all, because everyone kind of bottles it up inside and they don't want people to know. And especially for guys, and I'm speaking to the guys that are listening to this, it is a guy thing to internalize it and not let anybody in. And that is something that's extremely challenging. It's tough to open up about. So we'll get into that, because you've been very, very open about that. I think it's a story that more people need to hear, so people don't realize that they're alone. That's one big thing, and how business really affects that. And people don't talk about it. This is like the dark side of entrepreneurship that nobody talks about. But before we get into that, just walk me through, how did you end up in the restaurant business to begin with?
I started off in kitchens when I was 17, like well before I thought that this was going to be my career path or anything. I was very music driven at that time. I ended up going to, school afterwards for jazz performance and did a whole thing for that. So I was going to be a rock star at one point in my life, and that didn't really work out. I started working for the company that I purchased here when I was 19. So it was my dad's best friend was the original owner of this business, and I was kind of in between tours and needed some money. So I called him up and was like, "Hey, you got anything for me?" And he was like, "Well, you can come scrape all our barbecue grills." It was the end of summer. So that was my first job for the business. And then kind of as life progressed, the business opened up another location kind of thing. And I stopped touring and I started working for the business more, and he saw something in me. So made me management, gave me some ownership way long time ago. And then kind of everything, working for the business for a very long time, doing our thing. And then when the pandemic hit, kind of everything came to a head, and, he needed to figure out his life. I obviously needed to figure out my life. And so, I went all in and purchased this right in the middle of the pandemic to keep it going.
So, obviously, you couldn't really tour anymore given the pandemic, even if you wanted to. But yeah, so what was that like? All of a sudden, there's this massive turmoil that's happening with, restaurants being shut down or only be able to, offer takeout, or like there's all of this going on, and you're like, man, what better time than to buy a business, right? So walk me through that. What was that like?
Yeah, it was, it was reaching out to kind of a business mentor on my other side now, who helps me understand more of what I'm doing. And they're also a really huge help in my life as well. And I reached out to him, and it was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The business was struggling back then as well, kind of before I purchased it. But, I had a job, I was getting paid. You know what I mean? I knew there was a business. And so I linked up with him. We kind of dissected the business with his CFO. And, at that time we were a $1.2 million business. So there was a business there, right? And that's what they said to me. And they're like, if you can figure this out, then it makes sense, right? And so I was
There's
like,
a big if there, though, if you can figure this out.
Absolutely, right? And at that time, I thought I knew everying. I was like, this is what I was taught. This is what we should do. If we can do this, we're going to make it.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
So at that time, I was 37.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, 37. So I started managing the business when I was 27. So I had kind of been managing the business for 10 years at that point.
Okay.
Learning from the original owner and kind of doing things that we were doing. So had a business, but didn't have a plan. That's for sure. So it looked good, but obviously in the pandemic, we didn't really know what was going to happen. We were going to be. We're a strong catering company, so restaurant wise, we're a little bit different. So it was more of like catering was all gone. So I really had nothing to do for a long time, and that's when we made some changes to the business, brought in the whole Smokehouse thing, went more on that side of everything, and kind of made some big changes that the business now is what it is today.
That's quite a jump. And then to figure all that out, and again, there's no roadmap, right? There's no roadmap for COVID,
No.
Like it was just, we were just figuring this out as we go. And I think all of us were at that time. So, I mean, kudos to you for again, making it through that part. But one thing you said was really, really interesting, learning from the original owner. And I see this so much. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is we all think at some point we're like, hey, well, they're a restaurant owner. They must know what they're doing. And what we all know now is that most of us don't really know that much about what we're doing, or at least we didn't. And what's just so interesting is that we just assume that people have it all figured out, and we just kind of assume that we're learning the right things from them. And just a point that I try and make, because I like to dispel some beliefs on these podcasts, and when I'm talking to people, it's just that a lot of people believe that the only way to run a restaurant is by putting in those 60 plus hour weeks and having 10% margins, maybe if you're lucky, and not relying on other people to do more stuff. And the thing is that that's not the only way to run a restaurant. It's the only way that they know how to run a restaurant, right? And if we look at the restaurant history and of the generations of people who did run restaurants before, if you take a look, let's look at my grandfather, for example. He owns a funeral home, and my dad works there. They have very different ideas of how to run it, by the way. But and also, I moved as far away as I could because I didn't want to go into the funeral business. So I was 18, and as soon as I graduated, bang, I was out, and I moved halfway across the country. So they couldn't pull me in. But the point is, the way my grandfather ran the business was, a penny saved is a penny earned. And also, you get in there, you do it. There's no good help. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And that is the way that he ran things. And I think that that's the culture that has kind of permeated the industry a lot, because let's face it is easier to jump in and do things yourself because it's going to be faster, more effective in the short term. But over the long term, what that creates for restaurants is a restaurant that burns you out, that doesn't make as much money because you just can't have eyeballs on everything all of the time. And if you grow it to that point, then you start fighting fires all the time. And so it's this reinforcing cycle. Like you can't, let's look at it this way, because you mentioned multiple locations and stuff like that when you're talking about, originally getting into the business and stuff like that. Like you can't have 3 locations and run them like you run one. Like it's just not possible to scale that, right? So there's a different way of leading and a different way of owning that you need to learn in order for you to unlock these upper levels. Because you can one location up to $1 million a year in sales, you can pretty much brute force your way through it. You can jump in, you can fix it all, you can be there all the time. Piece of equipment breaks, no worries, I'll deal with it. But start getting beyond that level, and the same principles won't work anymore. And eventually people end up realizing that they don't have a life and they're not having the income they want. And they think that the industry is broken because they don't know another way to run a restaurant. And we have to shift into, when I say corporate mindset, I hate when people, because it's not corporate, it's a very logical way to do business, because you need to be able to train people properly, ensure that they do the right things, hire the right people. It's just having basic principles and stuff in place. And if you want to call that corporate or franchise or whatever, go to it. But I think that does a disservice because people view corporate as being like a soulless thing and not as good. But it doesn't have to be that. It just means the business doesn't control your life, So
yeah.
I know it's a long rant, but I feel that sometimes because I know, and I've been there, and I've done it, and I see that the havoc it wreaks on people because they feel like there's no other way to do it. You know what I mean? And so my guess for you, and again, I don't know all of your story, but my guess is that when things got tough, that's kind of probably what you might have defaulted to. I don't know.
Oh, 100%. That's my story without like getting into the specifics of it. But yeah, it was, before we got into location 2, we were a $600,000-$700,000 business.
Yep.
And then I pushed us to get a second thing because an opportunity came up that was really good for us.
Of course.
And that's when, that was in 2012, 2013. And he was behind me and he pushed, he thought he saw it and it was great, but we did not have the systems, the processes in place. Exactly what I've learned from you guys. You know what I mean? We had none of that. Right. So, and then I had 2 kids on top of that during all that stuff too. Right.
Yeah.
So
and that changes everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, 2014, my daughter comes and, now I've got 2 locations with the catering on the side as well out of one of them. Plus, now I've got my family going and so I just hustled, right? My daughter knew me for working 100-hour weeks and she still brings it up to this day. And she's like, Dad, you used to work so much. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, and so on that note, oh man, so this may hit some people hard when I say this, but the question I asked one guy, because he's talking about how much he works, and he was working filling shifts for people, right? Because they would call in sick, they wouldn't show up, like all of that. And I'm like, why are you working so hard for people that will never even show up to your funeral? Right? Like there's only going to be 2 people that are going to remember all the hours you worked, and it's going to be you and your family, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not your employees. And again, not that employees aren't important, not that that's not crucial, and not that I'm saying that this isn't necessary sometimes, but if this is your entire life, we have to remember who we're sacrificing for. And at the end of the day, look at that and say, are we sacrificing it, for the right reasons? And most people think they are. Most people are like, well, if I just do that for a little longer, it'll get better and it'll get better. But I'll ask you, how is it going to get better if you don't change what you're doing, right? You actually need to be working on the things that are going to make that change rather than just solving the fires every day. Because 6 years later, most people come to me and they say, Andrew, I missed my kids' birthdays. I missed every swimming class. I missed every soccer game. And I've missed so much of their life that I can never get back, all for a bunch of people who don't even work here anymore, and all for a business that isn't even paying me that much money. Right. So, and that's why you wonder, why am I doing this? And so that's why there's a different way to do things that actually can make you more money and provide you more life. And most people just don't know how to do it. So I know we're getting off track, but walk us through, we talked about this a little bit, but just tell me what led you to kind of reach out for help. I know you mentioned that you were going through some challenges. You were obviously working a lot. Walk us through kind of that. It's not the Rocky cut scene in between, but it's almost like the time before that where, if you had to put it in a movie, it would be with really sad music and, what's that for you?
Yeah. So pandemic, obviously I went all in, bought the business, took out $250,000 loan essentially to do this. And was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this. Obviously, like we talked about, pandemic was crazy and trying to get out of it. None of us could predict what was happening. So unfortunately, over another year from when I bought it, we were restraining the pandemic. So I lost another $170,000 at that time, which... Okay. My business mentor, who believes in me and believes in the project and what we're doing, was just like, yeah, we don't have the business. We need to help you out. So they were kind of cash flowing me and helping me out. So then there goes the 240. Now all of a sudden I'm up at $400,000, right? Yeah. We're now out of the pandemic. The business is coming back. We did the year prior to 22. We had a good year that year. We did just shy of $1 million. So the business was kind of getting back to where it was prior to the pandemic. And we made some money that year. You know what I mean? We had about $10,000 in profit, let's say. So I was like, okay, cool. We're doing this.
Okay.
We're on
let me stop you there though. You got excited about $10,000 off of $1 million.
That's the old Don. Okay, we don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's 1%. So
100%, right? But when and this is part of like my old mindset and where I was taught, I kept always being told that, hey, if you're doing 4 to 6% profit in a restaurant, you know what I mean? You're doing good. If you're pumping out 10%, then you're part of the higher ones, right? This is before I knew what I know now. So I was like, okay, those were my goals, right? Was to get to 4 to 6% profitability. And it was like, anyway, I laugh at that whole side of me now. You know what I mean? Like when I look at my budget this year going forward, I'm like, oh gosh, like what was I doing?
Well, it's like there's this invisible ceiling that you don't know you could. I talked about this on another one of the podcasts, and I'm going to get the story wrong again, and somebody please comment and correct me at some point. But it's like that they ran a mile in under a minute, or like it was some sort of like you ran a certain distance under a certain amount. No one ever done it before, right? But then there was the first guy to do it, and then the year after that, like 20 more people did it. It was just like, but no one knew it could be done, so therefore nobody did it. And so for you, it's like you didn't know that was possible. Like, so you're not shooting for 20% profits when you thought the max was like 4 to 6%, right? And so here's where that becomes an issue, is that you start to think you're doing okay with, let's face it, what's really abysmal results, like a 1% profit. And so that's 10 grand. Let's just say that. And that's I'm assuming that's 10% profit on the books, not cash flow. Because out of that 10 grand, you're then paying all of your loan payments. So you're still negative. My guess would be negative 50 to 70,000 based on the debt that you mentioned between 400. Anyway, if you're paying all of them back, few thousand monthly or whatever. So like you're still cash flow negative. And so that's at the point where it's like, you can be like, but I'm doing good. And so that's when you go, man, the restaurant game's broken, right? The restaurant business is broken. And so that's where people think that, because they're like, I was told to do this and it's not working. Right. So anyway, that's
100%.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Continue, sorry.
Yeah, and so, but then like, so now at that point, I'm really starting. So like the next year goes and we do 1.3 million, or whatever, but we lost $110,000.
Yeah,
because I kept doing what I was doing from before. You know what I mean? I had the same principles, the same goals. I didn't lack the systems, lack the processes, didn't have any organizational structure. I was still doing everything. And all that was doing was not having anybody look at the business. And when that happened, when nobody's looking at the business, this is what happens. You know what I mean? And within all that, it was a huge shock when I found out, the year before I was like, oh, I made money. And then I thought I was making money the whole year, when we were having our meetings and stuff like that. I was like, okay, yeah, we lost some money that month, but we made a bunch of money in my bigger months, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, we were projecting this, and then all of a sudden, it just went sideways somehow. And within all that, it took me to a very dark place of like, I now have $500,000 in debt.
Yep. And
I have no way of paying for this. And so it started entering my mind some really bad, dark thoughts of, you know what? If I crash off this bridge, it sure is a lot easier than having to figure this out.
Or it's like, hey, I've got life insurance. Like, I'm worth more dead than alive. Like, yeah. And it's sad that we're saying that in jest, because those moments are not funny. But those are real conversations, and people don't understand that those are the conversations that are going on in people's heads. And unfortunately, like I've been in that situation. I know multiple entrepreneurs that have taken their own lives. And it's, I actually just came across a picture of one of them the other day, and he was an extremely successful guy. And I think that during the pandemic, things took a turn for the worse with his businesses. And I think, and again, I don't know the internal stories, but I remember just this last time I saw him in person, I have a picture of it. And anyway, it's those types of things that people don't realize, or they don't realize that other people are going through. And I don't think that people understand that it doesn't have to be like that, because people think either that's the only way out, or selling the business is the only way out, or like they think all those things. It's just because they don't know how to make it better. And there is a way. And literally, you're just a few months of work on the other side of that, and everything can change. So I know you mentioned that you met with a psychologist, had some medication, stuff like that. Obviously, an attempt to get help, which is good. But just walk us through like what life was like and what the family life was like at that point. Like, how you were showing up at work for your team. Like, just walk us through that.
It's literally about a year ago last week that everything kind of came to a head. Found out the news about that. Had a busy. We were doing all our things, right? So everything was up and going now. Business is full going, awesome. And I was, doing what Don does. And unfortunately, it kind of hurt the team a little bit and had a big night where there was not a big thing, like it just was a bad night for the team. And it came down hard on me, and I didn't know what to do anymore, right? And the way I handled the situation definitely was not the best way of me handling the situation. And my life was in total chaos at this time, and I was doing all sorts of things wrong. I couldn't regulate myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was under such pressure from the morning I woke up until the end of the day. I just felt like I was getting kicked in the nuts straight all day, and I couldn't regulate my emotions. My kids were being kids, and I was unfortunately yelling and losing my mind for no reason because my kids were being kids. And it's like I'm a 40-something-year-old adult who should be able to regulate himself, but the amount of stress and everything that I was going through, and sleeping pills, now I'm on sleeping pills, now I'm on this, and I never wanted to do that in my life, but here I am, you know what I mean? Just constant doom scrolling now, like not even showing up for anybody. I just couldn't, you know what I mean? And I'd show up, I would go through all the motions, you know what I mean? So that the doors are staying open and we have business and all that stuff. But I was soulless at the time. At that point I was in therapy and she's really going, like your values, you got to take, what are your values? Like, what do you value? Where are you? And like, a lot of this is you need to change. And
it's hard to hear that too.
Yeah, it sucks hearing that, right? Like, I'm a 40-year-old guy. What do you mean? Like, you know what I mean? I'm successful. I have at one point, ego Don shows up, which is, that was my old mindset, right? And so I had a lot of changing to do internally in order to get me to where I am today. And luckily, within my depression and doom scrolling and everything that I was going through, your Facebook ads popped up, and I laughed at him like 100%, yeah. Andrew. I was like, this goof, and I couldn't have been more wrong, right? Like, but that was just my mindset at that time. But I was like, what do you have to lose, Don? You lost $110,000. You think you know so much, bud? Like, and this was my internal conversation. I was in terrible places, right? Like, yeah. And I was like, well, whatever. Let's click on it. Let's just do it. And then I go through a couple interview processes with a couple people from your company, and I'm like, it was a time, man, and luckily everything aligned, right? Everything happens for a reason, and I couldn't be in a better place now because of all of it. So I went through some shit, but I came out on the right side of it all.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think what I like to do is I try and talk to people who are kind of in the shit a little bit, in the frustrating part, because it's in those moments where either you don't know the way out. It was just like when I was like extremely overweight, and don't get me wrong, I started running last night, man. Freaking hard. Anyway, it's literally a podcast called like Couch to 5K. Anyway, I still like weight train, but let's say my diet hasn't been as good. I literally spent like a month traveling, and let's face it, eating in pubs and stuff all through the UK definitely isn't. And Vegas has some amazing food. You don't undereat in Vegas. Anyway, point is, when I was really overweight and really unhappy with myself, I always looked at people that went to the gym, and I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, a bunch of boneheads, like, they're not building a business like I am. Like, I'm doing this thing over here, which makes us feel better in the moment, which masks the reality for us. Because here's what I believe. I believe that if most restaurant owners really look themselves in the mirror and were honest about their situation and their lives and the way that things are going, like, I think that most of them would probably have a come to Jesus conversation with themselves and really, break down and be like, what are we doing? So a lot of the calls when we talk to people, like those calls that you had before signing up, a lot of us is just getting people to face reality. Like, hey man, like, sure, you tell me you've got this great business that's 1.3 million. Yeah, everything is great, and we're going to grow to this, and it's all going to be great. And then we're like, but hey dude, like, you lost 150 grand last year. Like,
Yeah, you have no idea. So like, if that tape still exists of my
it does. Like I can find it. Yeah.
You will see me cry like 3 or 4 times on that call because like, yeah, I mean, you guys called me out on it, right? Like,
yeah.
It's something I tell my staff. You know, I've got some staff now who are going through some of the management and leadership things with you guys. Like, the resources that are part of this program are amazing for my business, right? And I'm like, you know, these are these, but you need to understand that like you need to change, right? If we don't implement these things, like these are real things. The biggest thing I've learned was I needed to change my management style, my leadership style, right? We just completed the disc profiles and going through
nice.
Workshop that with our coach and stuff like that. And that mind-blowing information in there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and so just so everyone knows, a DISC profile is a personality assessment, and we use it for our leadership teams so they understand what their normal state is, and then also how to communicate better with everyone else. Because everyone wonders, like, well, why do I instinctually do the things that I do? It's how you're wired. And so it basically discovers how you're wired. But in order to have an effective leadership style, you have to understand that other people are wired differently. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but you also need to communicate with them, and you need to treat them differently based on to try and get the best out of them, right? So anyway, I am a D is my profile, if anyone ever wants to look up the DISC profile, which stands for dominance or douchebag, depending on how you want to use that. Now, a douchebag is not in the official training, but just because Ds are typically much more like, let's get it done right now, let's go. When they're stressed, they will take over control and will insert themselves. The biggest fear is loss of control. So if you have a situation you don't control, that causes you to have anxiety, and anxiety comes out in anger. For D profile. So that's how, like in other profiles, the way that they respond might be crying, right? Like that's the way they let go of their emotions. D's, anger is the emotion for D's. And that's what you'll notice. So that leadership style can be beneficial in some cases, but can be extremely detrimental over the long term with a team. So little things like that. Anyway, there's so much more we could dive into on that, but I want to bring us back just to some of the changes that have happened for you. And there's one sentence that I think everyone needs to hear, and Alex Hormozy was one that I heard this from, and it's a great podcast, by the way, if you ever want to listen to it. But it was like the one line that you can say to stay poor for the rest of your life, it's someone else's fault. Like, and the one line, if you want to make more money and you want to change your life, the one phrase you need to learn is like, it's all my fault, right? Because as soon as you start to take accountability and say like, yes, the economy might suck. Yes, COVID. Yes, these employees are stupid. Yes, this and that. But at the end of the day, whose job is it to fix it and find a way through? It's yours. So if that employee is stupid, well, why did you hire them? And if they seem like a good hire, then how did you train them? Because there is no way that you did not affect that. There's no way that you went along and you hired a great person and then trained them all properly, and then all of a sudden they became stupid while they worked for you and lost half their IQ and just forgot how to do everything. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't happen. So like, at which point does that happen? Or if the manager hired them, it wasn't you, well, who hired the manager and who taught the manager to train, right? And so if the economy sucks, you can't control that, but you can adapt to it, right? Like, do you know how many restaurants, just Don, question, out of what percentage of restaurants that we talk to come to us and say, Andrew, like, I know things have gotten more expensive, but I haven't adjusted my pricing, I haven't adjusted my menu, I haven't adjusted my portions, I haven't adjusted anything. Just take a wild guess at what percentage come to us saying that.
I'm going to say over like 95 or higher.
It's pretty high. I actually don't have a number on it, but it's really high. Because it's that
was me. So,
you know, and some people have, but maybe not enough. They're like, oh, I raised my menu prices 10 cents. You know, I'm like, okay, well, it's something, but like, you know, did you do the math on it to know how everything went up? And like, there's one guy, I just literally watched a call this morning of a guy who's like, my chicken prices went up 50% over the last 4 years, but I haven't changed my pricing. And I'm like, so what do you think it's doing to your margins, right? And then we get people to do a competitive analysis about all the businesses with similar products, and then you realize that you're the lowest priced one and your quality and service are better than everyone else. That just means that you have terrible margins and make no money. It's kind of what that means. So,
yeah.
Hey, real quick. What if you could identify thousands in hidden profits, optimize your food and labor costs, and know exactly what moves to make next to grow your restaurant business, all in less time than it takes to drink your morning coffee? That's exactly why I created the Restaurant Weekly Financial Tracker. It's free and available on the link that's in the description. Grab your free copy now and focus in on your restaurant's profitability today.
And so, like, I mean, that was an interesting thing for me because, like, I was 100%, that was me, right? You, again, yeah, it's not like you haven't done this before, but that was us. And so it's hard, right? Because, like, you know, in my city, I'm in Calgary, Alberta, right? So I'm in a bigger, larger city, right? And
oh, by the way, I think I'm going to be coming to Stampede this year, just so you know.
Oh, there you go. Well, we'll have to hopefully link up if you're in town.
Yeah, sounds good.
We have so many restaurant groups here. You know what I mean now? Like, they're really taking over and you know, there's restaurant groups. They own 9, 10, 11 restaurants, right? And so it's like, well, they're those are the big dogs. You know what I mean? I'm just a little independent guy, you know, trying to get to the big dog status for sure, right? But undervaluing my brand because I don't think I'm in their league. Do you know what I mean? That was my biggest mindset challenge, was that, like, well, but I'm not that group. I am just me over here in my little location. And it was like, once I kind of scrapped that whole thing and then talking with the coaches, and it's like, okay, well, what's your process? And I'm like, well, we do it this way. And they're like, well, that's better than how they're doing it, isn't it? But you're charging less. And I'm like, sure am. Like, you hear yourself right now, right? And I'm like, got you. Let's just raise all the prices. Or it wasn't all that, but it was definitely like looking and going, okay, I'm charging $3 less for the same product that we're actually putting more effort and creating a better product at the end of the day. So why am I charging less?
Yep. And I mean, and even if you go to price parity and not more, like, that's still a massive impact on your bottom line, right? And so, and the thing is, you can't outmarket and you can't outwork improper pricing. And that's just one phrase that I keep coming back to. No matter what you do, if you're not priced properly, it's always going to be this giant hole in your business that you will have to go so far to fix that it will become unsustainable. And so let me ask you this. So you did raise some prices. Did you lose all your customers and you're out of business now?
No, that was, you know, like, again, the first time. I am a fan of raising prices now, Andrew. I got to tell you, it's becoming my thing. So the first time I did it, and we did a substantial raise, and not a single word was said to us, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, like, I raised some prices $4 on a sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, these were substantial jumps from $16 to $20, right?
Yeah.
But nothing.
By the way, I also don't recommend gigantic jumps like that, but it just goes to show you that, again, if the value is there, you're still going to retain your customers, right? And prices also, when they go up everywhere, it's just people expect that. And here's the other thing that people don't understand is that when you have your prices too low, and specifically when your prime cost, which is your food and labor cost, when that gets up, you basically have to sell almost double. So the question is, by lowering my prices by X amount, am I selling double? Right? And most of the time we're not. We might see a little bit of a lift if our prices are that much lower, but is it double? Is it enough to quantify that reduction? You know, it usually isn't. But the point is, people haven't done the math, and it's all in their head, and it's a fear. But there's fear without data, right? And so that's just like when a child says, "Hey, Daddy, there's a monster under my bed. Can you come and check?" Right? So let me ask you the question. If even a child knows that she needs someone to check and verify what her fear is, why don't we actually do that with data when we have a fear in our business? Just throwing it out there. Why don't we actually go and do an analysis, run a test, actually put some data behind it? Because a fear is just a fear, whether founded or not. Let's put some data to it and find out, right? That's what business is. But if we let that fear control us, we end up staying in that same place, and it's not a good place to be. Time to put your big boy pants on and do some tough shit. That's what you're paid to do. You're a business owner. So
yeah, but doing the tough shit ain't easy. You know what I mean?
It's not. I'm not saying it is, but that's what we're paid to do. That's what we signed up for. Entrepreneurship is not easy. You have to have tough conversations. You have to make tough decisions. But that's what the job is. and in order to be successful. And here's the other thing too. The more you put off these types of decisions and the more that you put that stuff off, it's like a video game, right? It's like you can't go to the next level in your business until you beat the boss at that level. And life and business will keep teaching you the same lesson over and over and over again until you learn it, and you will not progress until you learn that lesson. So if, like, I'll give you an example, for ownership, you mentioned seeing some Facebook ads, especially on a large scale, can take time and effort to get them working really, really well, right? And as you scale, they get less effective, right? So when you're spending, $50 a day, they work way better than when you're spending $5,000 a day, right? They lose their efficiency at scale. And so the thing is, over say a year, like until you learn how to solve that problem, you're still going to be stuck with that problem, And this is the same and true in any business. If you suck at hiring and you don't fix that problem, you know what? You're always going to have people issues. If you suck at training, your people might be good, but they're not going to know what the hell they need to do. And you're just going to be stuck there until you figure that out, And so that's why in business, we need to solve the right problems at the right time, the right way. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. So on that note, what are some of the things that you focused on? Obviously, pricing was one. It's now your thing. But what else? What else kind of changed for you? What are some other changes that might help people that were in a similar place and just trying to make their business better and turn that, because basically it's a $150,000 swing in profitability, and not only that, but now you have a better work-life balance. Like, what are the keys to that? If you had to look back and look at the big ones that made a difference, what were those for you?
So understanding that not any person out there can successfully manage, 14 people, at that time, that's what I thought. I didn't understand organizational structure at that point. You know what I mean? To me, it was, I'm the owner, everybody works, let's just get this done. Right. Not using people to do things. Right. I would just, again, I'm a hard DI. Like right on the line, right at the top. So
exactly the same as me. So welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, that's just it, right? It didn't matter. It was just go, 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 go. Yeah. Not actually understanding how to lead. Right. So, and be a leader. I didn't know I needed, I wasn't a leader. I was just a worker. That was one of the big changes that happened was, so like after we got the pricing done, right? So it was like, okay, let's fix problem number one. So that was month one. Bam, pricing fixed. All of a sudden, made money that month. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, so now let's start dialing in some of these things. And within the first couple, it was identify a couple key players within my business, which, I had some people at that time, and it was like reaching out, and they were coming on board and getting on. And I was like, okay, so this is where you're doing this now. I don't need to do this, right? Yep. And I'm still learning that. Like, I'm still trying to figure that out, of all the things that I should be doing and shouldn't be doing and stuff. Right. So that was a big thing, is understanding that. And so then it was like, okay, so what does this business need in order for us to run? Not, going off of feeling, going off of thought. It was like, okay, let's put this on paper. Right. So then it was work, go through the assets, go through the materials that you guys have. Right. There's so much information there that it's so useful. Right. So it was just starting to dive into that. So then it was getting some people and understanding that, did some hiring, fixed our hiring process, right? Like,
what a difference, eh?
Oh yeah, 100%. The first time I did it too, right? Right off the bat, it was just like resume, quality, bam, bam. I'm like, I never used to get this.
Yeah.
My first hiring day or whatever, when I was doing interviews, I had, 5 out of the 6 interviews I booked show up. And then I had an additional person show up that I didn't even book an interview with. And I was just like, man, I used to have 1 out of 6 show up, Yeah. So,
yeah. And that's the thing. People are like, oh, nobody wants to work anymore. The truth is, nobody wants to work for you, right? And that's what we need to change, because we need to make you a place that people want to work, and then you cease to have that problem.
100%, right? Show them. And then when you have structure to your business and you can show people a pathway, right? Like we have our hiring booklet now has pathway to promotions.
Yep.
This is where you are. If you want to get to here, there's tons of chance, and we will help you and we will coach you. And we have all these amazing things now that not necessarily all the other businesses have, right?
Yep.
So you make the choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure book. Hey, if you want to move up in the company, if you want to make more money, here's how. Here's the things we need to see. And it's clear, and it just brings people up in the organization, because as you scale, what you will need more of are great people. And so if you don't have a way of continually cultivating great people and moving them up in your business, you will always be talent deficient, because there's always either, like, you can either run like a physical monetary debt, or there's going to be a talent debt, usually, or sometimes both. But that's just something that you accrue, whether you like it or not, as you scale of a business, right? So
yep. Yeah. So then I think then it was like fixing the people, the hiring processes, right? So it was getting that stuff dialed in, and then it was starting to take a look at checklists, right? Like, is everything clearly defined, right? And I'm not, being a DI, I'm not great with information. I'll show you, and I expect you to do it.
Exactly.
And so, it was trying to get all that information from up here onto paper. I'm still dealing with it, right? Like, I'm still,
because you know everything. Like, if I know how to do it, how come they don't know how to do it? Well, because it's in your head. Yeah.
Did you write it down anywhere? Did you share that information with anyone? It's like, well, no, but I showed them.
Yeah. One time, right? 3 months ago. Like, how come that?
Yeah, exactly. So now it's, starting to dial in those processes, right? And then it's now, okay, well, how are we training our people? Are we all getting trained the same? So then it was starting to look into those processes, and we're still dialing in our training right now. And all these things are ongoing all the time. And that's kind of one of the things that we had a whole staff meeting last week. And it was like, guys, this is still a process. We're not, we're always going to be evolving and learning things. So don't think of any of this of me trying to be a corporation, because being a DI, I hate corporate things, right? I don't like these things. They're not but I also understand the importance of them. And again, I'm not trying to be corporate, but I'm also trying to set a level of expectation and standards that we just need to hit. And then if you call that corporate, you can call that corporate. But at the end of the day,
it's minimum standards and expectations, right? Like,
it's pretty simple. I teach my kids this every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then it's just continuing to build from there, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like we're in an interesting part where we're now starting to really dial in our menus, right? So now we're looking at quam graphs. And we're looking at, what are our big money makers? What are we not moving? How do we get everything so that we are the most profitable we can be?
Yep, 100%. And so, like, how long have you been with us in total right now?
Just shy of a year. I think next week's a year with you guys.
Okay, well, that's awesome. And so, because the reason why I wanted to ask that is because it seems like a lot of work. And like all of these things put together, right? And here's what most people think. They think that there is one silver bullet that's going to magically fix their business. And the reality is that there's like 1,000 golden BBs, right? Like, that's how businesses change. Because there's 1,000 problems, 1,000 ways to tighten things, 1% here, 1% there, 1%, but that adds up over time. And so our philosophy when working with people, which you would have noticed, is, hey, let's take the most biggest glaring problem. Let's solve that first. Because you mentioned after a month with us, you started making money. Like that was a wild swing from losing money, which would have been like 10K. So yeah, that would have been like a 10,000 plus swing in the first month. So now that you're not losing money, you're making money. That gives you the breathing room to start going, okay, now what else do we need to accomplish, right? So our objective is always, let's solve the biggest one. Let's work on that first. And then let's start fine tuning the rest, which will then help create all the other things down the line. Doesn't happen overnight, because changes in an organization, like, you've been running this thing you've been working there before. So, you're probably 15 years now, something like that.
I've been with the business for 23 years now.
23. Okay, so it's a little bit off. But yeah, 23 years. So that doesn't get fixed overnight. We can fix some major problems very, very quickly. So that's why I always fix the biggest one first. And then that allows us to then fix the rest of them, which, it's not that they're not important, but they might be less important. But all of those over time make a huge impact. Because there's a lot to do, especially when you're going from without the systems and structure of those pieces in place. So just to sum up, because you were telling me earlier, like just the financial difference in the first 9 months or so of last year that you would calculate. So tell me what was that difference financially?
Like for the entire business?
Yeah, like from on your profit and loss. Like, what was the difference, the change in between before us versus after we solved these things?
I couldn't tell you the exact number right off the top of my head or whatever, but my fiscal year is March or whatever. And so we just finished that. And so, within the 9 months of being in the ownership program of my fiscal year, we did $150,000 swing essentially for the business from the year before. And that's just by raising prices, hiring some better people, fixing some processes, starting to train better. And then now marketing, we started marketing the business in December last year. I never thought of, marketing for me was just word of mouth, right? We had a $1.4 million business on word of mouth.
Yep.
And it's like, now let's market. And since we started marketing, man, that's a whole other side. Every month has been up so far since we started marketing. You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
My April was up 40% from the year before.
Wow. Okay.
Just this past April. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And here's the thing is then that's profitable growth. So 40%, let's just say you're doing about 100,000. I think you're probably more than that, but 100,000 in a month. Here's what most people don't understand is do you know where your prime costs were prior to us versus where they are now? Do you have an idea where those are?
We were, 85 or higher in our prime costs so prior to joining up with you guys.
Yep.
April, we came in just under 60.
Okay. So let's just say 85 to 60. So let's just do some math. Yep. I've got my calculator here because I want to show this to everybody. So let's just say 100K in sales, that gives you 1.2 million. So 85 down to 60. So that is a 25% swing. So out of $100,000, a 25% drop in prime cost gives you $25,000 in profitability because every dollar you save for your prime cost drops straight to your bottom line, right? So now here's the other thing. Now that you're making money, so you added 40%. So let's just say 40%, let's just say that's 40,000 of an increase, right? So 40,000 of an increase off of, let's, estimate 100,000 or whatever. And so now the difference is you only have to pay that 60% prime cost, right? Because you're already making money, so your break-even's already met. Every dollar you add after that, you only pay your prime cost. So out of that extra $40,000 in sales, let's just go times 40 because that's what's left over after the 60% prime cost. That's an additional 16,000 in profitability, right? Just based on that sales increase once you are lean enough. And so again, we were talking about like a $25,000, like basically that alone, now with this 40% increase, that wouldn't have grown your profit by 50% or 25%. That doubles your profitability because you're already at the point of breaking even. And that's the problem that most people don't understand about their money model of their restaurant is that once you hit your break even point, after that, every dollar after you pay a prime cost becomes net profit. The problem is most people have prime costs that are so high that their break even is at this absurdly high level that they need to hit, and most of them never do it, and that's why they don't get above that, right? And so that's how people start having these 20%, 25% profit margins, net profit, which is stuff that nobody would have thought could happen because in the industry, you're like, yeah, if your prime costs are like 70%, like you're fine. And some people say, oh, if it's just like in the 60 range, it's fine. Even the best goals for people, I've heard of like 30 labor, 30 food. So it's 60%. I'd say guys, you can get that to 55, right? Because that 5% drop, literally will double your profitability. Just that alone. So it just makes such a huge impact. And people just think, oh, I just need more sales. I need more sales. But what you did differently is you said, hey, let's make money with the sales we already have. Because you should be able to. At $1 million in sales per year, you should make some money, right? And so, let's solve that problem first. So we did that. Then you're like, okay, now let's get everything else so we can really dial in that profitability, but also then get ready for growth. And now that you have those sales, let me ask you this. Has it been an absolute shit show and everything's crazy and you're sucked back into the business, or is your team handling it, that 40% increase?
Yeah, so this is here's the tough part. Yes or no, right? And this is my own fault. And my coach, was hard on me last week again, and it's my own fault. But I'm missing a key player still for my business, and within that's making it difficult, for sure. Which is again I need to go post the ad, but here I am talking to you, right? So,
I will tell him it was it's my fault.
There you go. I should have done it last week. It's my own doing and stuff like that. Again, I'm still working on me, trying to get out of my own way and get my mindset to where it needs to 100% be. And within that, again, this is where I preached it to my staff. Yeah. It's a process. We are doing this, and I don't want to rush anything anymore because, I'm not in that change. But it's a little hectic right now, but that's because we landed a huge new catering client.
That's great.
They're booking 130 events with us over the next 3 months. So it's like,
well, there you go. Well, let me ask you this. So let me ask it a different way. If your business was structured the way it was a year ago,
oh God,
would you have been able to do that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and and it was interesting. So like June, July for restaurants, that's our money months, right? Those are super busy months for us.
For cold, just for everyone who's under cold climates, when the weather gets warmer, yes. If you were in a warm weather climate normally it's too hot, and those are your lull months. But for cold weather climates, yes, your summer is usually your peak. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So for me, when I joined up and I had I was like, I'm too busy, I can't do this, and I still jumped in, right? And so like a year ago, I was 120 hours a week. In the business, and like, it was 104 hours in the business and like 16 hours doing ownership things so that I could, it was university school all of a sudden for me, right? Like I was diving into it and doing it. So no, I would not have been able to do this a year ago.
Yeah.
So, but a year forward, and I work maybe 50 hours a week on a bad week. You know what I mean? I sometimes am making mistakes still where I think that, I need to work 80 hours because we're super busy. And then we look at our weekly tracker, we look at all the things afterwards, and it was like, well, we spent 23% in staff costs. So Don, did you really have to work that? Well, you could have hired other people. Still had room to wiggle, and you wouldn't have worked 80, 90 hours and had a crappy week, right? And so I'm still learning that through the processes and everything, and trying
it's a journey, right? It's a journey, and we have to kind of get out of those old habits. They don't go away easy, And so let me ask you just two more questions, and I appreciate your time and your candor today. But one question: so now that you're working less, how is the family life in comparison to what it was a year ago?
Oh, awesome. It's great. I make it to most. I'm going to my son's lacrosse game tonight. I was there on Saturday for his lacrosse game. My daughter, her cheer competitions, I'm able to make it to. I was able to get the out of town tournaments. I was able to go out of town and everything ran. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This year, where the year before when I went away for a cheer competition, it really exploded.
And you want to be like cheer dadding at that point, not being like on your phone, like, okay, like what's going on, answering texts, answering phone calls. Like you want to be in that moment,
Absolutely, yeah. And even then, it was like I was able to, we're working on our backyard right now, so we got the trampoline up and all that stuff done on the weekend. A couple of days, I was able to put the time in to make sure that got done. And a year ago, I would have been like, no, I can't. I'm too tired, and all the excuses, right, and all that stuff. So I'm able to show up for my family now, which is amazing, right? A lot better than I used to be able to, and spend more time at home and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So you're able to provide for the family, show up for the family, show up more for the business. The business makes more money, have more opportunities for the people that work inside the business. You're growing at what would be an incredible rate. 40% year over year is an incredible growth trajectory, right? So you should be proud of yourself for that. And the last thing I want to ask is, you told me earlier before we jumped on, is you talked about Freedom 85. Tell me what was it, Freedom 85? Tell me what you meant by that.
Or explore. Freedom 85. Freedom 85, man. That was I was going to be working dead in the business till I was 85 years old, Andrew. That was my outlook on life a year ago. I didn't see how I could not just be working in my business all the time to get me to pay the loans back and pay the things that I've taken out to continue doing this. I had no idea how I was going to do that. Somehow this is my retirement, this business. So again, this is my pension. This is my everything. And I had no idea with 4 to 6% profitability, how the heck am I going to get to where I want to be? I've always been, not a money driven person, but I've got goals of making $1 million, right? I would love to wake up one day and have $1 million. And so where I was, I had no money, I was making less than I was prior to the pandemic. I was working more and had more responsibilities and no way out. So my big thing was that I was in the Freedom 85 Club. Once I was 85 or in the ground, I was going to be out of the business and retired. And it was it's a terrible mindset to have, like terrible. No entrepreneur should be thinking like that with their business.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset change, right? So then once I learned that you don't have to think this way, Don, like you can think a different way.
Yeah. And you can get different results. You don't have to, that doesn't have to be your reality. And this is what I was saying earlier. So many people just think they're like, well, this is what the restaurant life is. This is the way that it has to be. And either I just, die here in the restaurant or I sell it. That's the only way I'll ever make it. And just people don't understand there's a different way. They just don't know how yet.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you being here. This was great. I had a lot of fun today. Not saying that I don't have fun with Nathan and Dave and the other people we have on the podcast, but this is a lot of fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, man. So I hope our listeners did too. So where can people find you if they want to look you up? Where do they find you if they want to get some food?
Some food, yeah, absolutely. So my company's All Beef Catering and Smokehouse. We're here in Calgary, Alberta. We have a location inside the Calgary Soccer Center here, so we're inside a giant sports arena. It's kind of where our main location is, and we have a full service restaurant inside of there. We also branched out 2 years ago, and we do food services for Village Brewery here in Calgary, Alberta as well. So they have an event space there, which is great for catering events, and that's what we do. And then we have a little kitchen out of there that we pump food out as well. So you can come visit the brewery, get some beers, the whole local experience there as well. So yeah, that's kind of where we are.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I hope things continue the way that they are. I can't wait to check back a year from now and see where you're at. Even then, man, I'm sure it'll be even better.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that, Andrew.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. We would love it if you left us a 5-star review if you found value in what we talked about today and would like to hear more. And even better, if you know a restaurant owner that needs help and wants to learn how to be better and get themselves out of the cycle that they're in to get to more profitability and having more freedom with their time and their family, share this with them. Give it a listen. And guys, we'll see you on the next one. This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.